Hello guys, good morning. It's me Success again, and it's Wednesday here. So I'm saying a buy opportunity on GBPUSD. So I just want us to take this time to explain the thought process and the brain behind it. So let's quickly jump into it. So here is my 4 hour time frame, my GBP charts. As you can clearly see, it's been labeled. So I have marked the high of the week, as you can clearly see also. And during the course of last week, at this particular time, I definitely was seeing a buy opportunity on GBPUSD as well. But then what happened? It got stopped out. But then today is Wednesday, so I'm definitely seeing the same thing happening. So why am I seeing this happening? So let me zoom out on my screen from my 4 hour time frame. So from my 4 hour time frame, I can clearly see I can clearly see that last week, or rather, market was definitely trending on a downtrend, and I've definitely highlighted this level with my box. I've picked up the boss and I've highlighted this level as my area of interest. So as you can clearly see, it's my area of interest for my 4 hour. If I'm to extend this level here, this box here, which definitely I'm going to explain. So from this level here, you can clearly see here is a resistant level. Here, it was definitely a resistant level when you saw what happened. Looking left, you can see that price got to this level. One price broke down this level. Price got to this level, being the resistant level. And then what happened? We saw price drop and drop up to this level. So what happened again? We saw the same thing happening. Price eventually came back to this level again. And what happened again? The same reaction happened again. It was a resistant level. Price dropped from this level again. So what then happened? We see price, or definitely we then have seen price fall below or create a new low, and then after creating a new low, we saw price then reversed back to the same resistant level. So we saw price eventually test this resistant level, as you can clearly see. So when price got here, we need to pay attention. I need to zoom in so you can pay attention what really happened when price got to this level. So when price got to this level, what did we then see? We saw price eventually broke above it with a little bit peak movement. Then price eventually broke below it again. And then price came again and broke above it again. Price then broke below it. Then in this case, what then happened? Price got to the same level and rejected off this level, and we saw price drop to a new low on this particular day. And then what do we then see? We saw price reverse back to this level. We saw price eventually bounced back off it, which means rejected and then dropped again. And when price then dropped on this particular day, we saw a W pattern being formed here. So which signified that price was definitely going to break this resistance level. So when price then break this resistance level, what then was I expecting? I was expecting to see price react off this level, this resistance level. Remember, it was a resistance level. So when price then broke above it, it was then considered a support level. So it was a support level because it was meant to take the market back to the uptrend. So the resistance later turned support. So what then happened? But price failed to create new highs. Price failed to create new highs. So price failing to create new highs, we saw price eventually retesting of this level again. And on this particular day, we saw price failing to create new high, and then instead of creating new highs, price broke below this level and formed a new low. So what then happened? If we have to fast forward, we then saw that price was eventually consolidating around this level, and then price then, remember, it was definitely ought to turn support to push the market to the upside, but market then failed to then create higher highs, but instead market rejected off this level and dropped and created a new low. So the same thing happened again. We saw price eventually retesting the same level again. What do they then see when price got to this level? Once price got to this level from the higher time frame, being the 4 hour time frame, we saw that price eventually rejected off this level and created a new low again. So what then are we then seeing? We then saw price eventually retested the same resistance level, which you can clearly see around this level as well. We saw price retesting off this level, rejecting off this level. So what happened? Price dropped again. And then we are now seeing that price has eventually created a higher high, or rather price has broken above the resistance level. Let me zoom in so you can clearly see. So price has eventually broken this resistance level. So what then are we seeing? What then are we then seeing? So this is the resistance level. Remember, price has failed to break. So we've seen price now breaking this level, and we have definitely seen price retested off this level. So we saw price again retesting this level here. Price eventually retested off this level, and then we expected price to create new highs, but we haven't seen new highs being formed. We haven't seen new highs being formed from a higher time frame. We haven't seen new highs being formed. So we can clearly see that price eventually again came back to the same level, which definitely in this case is definitely acting as support level to push the market to the upside, to push the market to the upside. So from my 4 hour time frame, you can clearly see the thought process, what I have been watching and what I've been paying attention on lately. And as you can clearly see, we've been marking the high of the week and we've marked out the low of the week as well. And it's been labeled low and high of the week. So all I'm going to be doing now is definitely to watch the formation, the candle formation from my lower time frame. For my lower time frame, I'm definitely going to watch the candle formation from my lower time frame, which means my entry time frame, which is the 15-minute time frame. So if I'm to execute on this trade, if I'm to take this trade, all I'm definitely going to be looking out for is to see a W pattern being formed from my 15 minutes that correlates with this psychological level here. If you already know, my psychological levels act as support and resistance. So let's quickly fall down to the 1 hour being the intermediate time frame. Let's see what's going on. Let's see what's going on from the 1 hour. So from the 1 hour, we can clearly see that we begin to see some buy candles, but then all I have to see is to see a W pattern being formed here. Is to see a W pattern being formed. So I need to see this. Yes, this is probably the one leg of the W. So I need to see this, whichever way it needs to form, but there needs to be a W pattern here for me to then consider this a buy trade, for me to confirm this as a buy trade. So I'm going to, or I'm looking forward to see a W pattern being formed from my 15 minutes time frame. So from my 15-minute time frame, if we have to fall down to the 15-minute time frame, let's quickly fall down to the 15 minutes. So from my 15-minute time frame, already I'm seeing signs and I'm seeing some candle formation being formed. From this level, all I have to see, like I said, it's a double pattern. It's a double pattern being formed from the 15-minute time frame. So all I want to see is the double pattern being formed. It's a double pattern being formed. Whichever way a double pattern needs to be formed on this level from my 15-minute time frame. So then I can go in to execute my trade, my buy trade, which means I have to then position my pick two, my buy pick two from this level. Let's say risk around 30 pips. The stop loss I'm definitely going to risk around 30 pips. So I'm just trying to put that so you can see how I'm definitely going to execute this trade. And then I'm definitely going to be targeting 100 pip movement. I'm going to be targeting 100 pip movement. So from this level, I'm definitely going to be targeting 100 pip movement, risking 30 pip thereabout. So if I'm definitely going to trade this trade, this is how I'm definitely going to execute this trade. I'm going to execute this trade in this way, in this manner. And this is how I literally analyze my pairs. This is how I literally trade. So if you do love how I analyze my pairs, how I trade, how I do my analysis from the 4 hour time frame down to my 15-minute entry time frame, I want you to hit the subscribe button. I want you to like, comment for more.